Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Learn and Collect the podcast.
2023.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. I just have to point out, if you are watching on YouTube, but I will describe it for those of you listening, Pat has his O Biscuits mug that we have got.
I want to know if you know what that's from.
Yes. So before, I'm not going to say what it's from.
Yeah,
if you know what it's from, you have to tell us that you know what it's from if you can figure it out. I'm also not sure for small business owners that might see that and think, I did get it on Etsy, but also, if you're a small business owner and doing stuff, I wouldn't sell phrases like that because it is copyrighted.
Yeah.
But I did find it from something that wasn't officially from what it is from. So all that to see if you guys know what we're talking about. But you may also notice, if you are watching on YouTube, that we are in a different location now. We're filming a different location. If you're not watching on YouTube, we now have bookshelves and stuff like that behind us and our fireplaces behind us. And that brings us to our chat for today. And that is that we changed up our, what do you call this space? It's the kitchen, like living room.
It's our living space. So it's where
dining.
we kind of,
it's an open plan, basically.
It's one big room. It's got our kitchen. It's got an area where we sit and watch television. It's got our table that we're sitting at right now. This is where we have our meals and things like that. So it's one big space that's got a lot of things and where we kind of spend the most of our time.
Yes.
For the most
not
part.
sleeping. Yeah. And we, over our break, we took time off that I think we talked about, that of taking some rest and stuff before the year started. And one day, I think it was right after New Year's.
It was New Year's Day. It was New Year's Day.
I don't even know how the conversation started. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what happened, but somehow Pat brought up, what if we moved the room around? And you have to understand, we have one child that does not like change at all. And then some of us are more, for me, I'm a visual person, so I have to actually see it. So Pat started describing, we can move this, and this, and we don't have much stuff. So for us to move things, it's actually pretty simple in this area. Mm-hmm. It didn't take a lot of time. I think we did it in less than 15 minutes to move some things around and just test it out and see what we would think. And so it means I guess the biggest thing that took time was moving the TV and all the wires that go with it and stuff.
Yeah, but that wasn't even that hard because literally just had to unplug a few things and we kept all the wires together.
True.
And just moved it across the room.
So we moved everything around. Basically, it just means our kitchen table's in a different location and our sofa is facing a different way, all that kind of stuff. Again, it's not major change. We moved these bookshelves. They used to be in a different location, all that stuff. And it's simple. It really was a simple change. It just was shifting the room and trading places with it and then shifting a couple of things.
We basically kind of switched everything from either side.
Yeah. And so our child that doesn't deal with change very well, we said wait till we move everything. And then we said, come up, and he walked up the stairs and said, oh, I really like this. Our child that actually doesn't normally have an issue with change was the one that didn't like it.
He doesn't really have an issue with most things.
He was the one that was like, I don't like it. I think he's still not on board with it. But we said, let's do this simple change and let's live with it for a week or two and see what we think. We can always move it back. We haven't made this simple change that we're stuck to and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so far, I guess it's been a week and we really like it. And we even have room for a chair now that we could, everyone's claiming is their chair. Pat says it will be his
it'll be
chair. My chair. Kind of like a reading chair with a footstool maybe. Not massive, but a smaller one. I want it to be my chair. I think the kids will each claim it as theirs as well. Anyways, that's all to say of it really had us thinking as you start the new year and everything. And we talked about in our last podcast about going into the new year slowly and that you don't have to go with this whole trend. And I'm literally saying this as I'm sure there's a podcast when we first started that we probably were here's how you start the new year, go, go, go. And even in 1 year, I think we've grown a lot in that. Of going slow into the new year, and that you don't have to set all your goals on the first, and you don't have to start doing all of the things on the first. Studies show that's not even, it won't work. You're going to then, quote unquote, fail, and then you're going to feel bad about that and all that stuff, and that sets up your year like that. Different things happen at the beginning of the year. I know some people at the beginning of the year, they've been slammed with sickness or unexpected events and stuff like that, and so then that means you think, well, this is how the rest of the year is going to go, or that kind of stuff. We've started our year very much like that podcast, very slow.
Yeah.
Last week, getting back into work and stuff, like each of the kids started school on different days, and getting back into work and everything, we were really gentle with ourselves. Like, the end of the week, we were both like, didn't really get done what we wanted to, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And so I think, a lot of that happens and we think that the new year should be these big changes. Like, big changes are the things that are going to make a big impact. And what we've learned with this space, and yes, we're only 2 weeks into it, or a week and a half or so, is like, actually, I think we both come to this conclusion, is like, actually, simple changes make the big impact. And so as you're thinking about the new year, maybe think through that. Even if it's, we're still kind of in the middle of our reflection time and thinking through this next year, looking at last year, that kind of thing. And our tendency in the past has been like, what is this, it could be both personal and business. What's this massive thing we want to change this year, and that kind of thing? Or what's this, for our business, what's this massive new thing we're going to do? And sometimes it's just like a small tweak of something, a simple change that is easy to trial to see if it works, but that makes the biggest impact. And so, I think we just thought we'd put that idea out there for you guys to kind of digest and think about of as you're looking into the new year, thinking of like, what is a simple change? Now, like, I need to figure out, I saw somebody post about how to turn off the ads for like working out and weight loss, because that drives me crazy at the beginning of the year. And I don't know, I'm getting them. Are you getting the ads?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
I didn't know if it was mostly targeted to women. I have a feeling it is mostly targeted to women, and that drives me crazy. Our
phones are listening to us, so.
True. But I haven't really talked about, I've talked about doing my 30-day yoga challenge, but anyways, you can turn those ads off if they bother you and they trigger you in any way. There's a way to do it. Just Google it, and I need to figure it out. It's not triggering me. It just annoys me, which is probably triggering then because I get annoyed from it. But, talking to a friend the other day, she was talking about how, like, I want to get up at 5 a.m., every day, and then had this list of things she wanted to do in the morning. And I said, what time do you get up right now? And she was like, well, right before I need to get the kids breakfast and get them out the door. So I think she gets up at 8 right now. It's like, that's a big difference right away.
That's a huge difference.
It's a 3-hour difference saying you're going to get up at 5 a.m. It also starts at the night that you need to figure out what time you need to go to bed to get the most sleep you need and stuff. So that's a lot of stuff. That's actually a big change. If you said you were going to get up at 7:30, that's not that big of a change. That's 30 minutes. Now, it may feel like a big change first because 30 minutes can, but like, how can you, if you do want a big change, how do you work on the simple pieces to get to that? Or you may do the 30 minutes and realize, I don't need to get up at 5 a.m. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
I know I'm guilty of that too. We've talked about it in the past. Like, Pat can tend to get up earlier than I can. Well, not tends to. Just does. But
I'm just more of a morning person.
Yeah.
So
in a conversation we had towards the end of the year, I realized I've put this idea on my time that I have to have, like, be working from this time to this time. That means I have to get up at this time if I want to journal or move my body in the morning, all these different things. I have a bad back. It's actually not good for me to move my body right after I wake up, which was what I was doing before, which was making my back worse, which made me then not be able to move my body. It was like this, domino effect. And actually, if I just push back, like, what time I was getting up, I don't need to get up that early. I could just get up, I still haven't quite done it, but I've done it a couple of days, 30 minutes before our kids get up, because I can have some quiet time in the morning. And then there's no reason I can't do some yoga while everyone's our kids are kind of quiet in the morning.
They've gotten into such a routine that, like, for the most part, we don't have to do much with them or for them. Like, Zane's at the age where he kind of takes care of himself in the morning. Like,
and he'll take care of his siblings a lot too.
And a lot of times he'll just ask the other ones, what do they want for breakfast? Again, it's pouring bowls of cereal. It's like, it's simple stuff. It's not like, he's making a 4-course breakfast meal or anything like that in the morning. And so for us, that allows us some more space in the morning that probably that we didn't have when they were toddlers.
Yeah.
And
so this is a season we're in, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So you may be thinking that doesn't work for me. And I mean, this is just using an example. It could, as we're thinking about our business and stuff, there's some things that we'd like to change, but it's like, is there a simple way to do some of those things and those switches and try them out and see how they work instead of switching everything all at once and that kind of stuff. And so again, it's that simple tweak. I can get up 30 minutes earlier. It may even take me a while to get to that, and that's okay. I think that's being graceful with yourself, and then realizing really does mean I need to go to bed at a certain time because I was sleeping much longer before. And that I don't have to be, I can take the kids in my yoga trousers and not have showered yet, and that's completely okay. And stuff like that, like, again, telling myself, we have the flexibility to do that because of how our jobs are and everything. So I know that looks different for everybody. So you think about your situation, what season you are, if you have kids, where you are in your career and stuff like that. But what are small, simple changes? And that they might actually end up making a big impact over time. It may not be something I feel like we've been able to see with this room because it is a very tangible, quick thing. You move something, you can see the impact right away. Obviously, with something like getting up early and having more time for yourself in the mornings and stuff, you may actually be tired that first week because you are getting up 30 minutes early or 15 minutes earlier. But then in week 2, you may realize like, oh, I really like that time in the morning to just have my cup of tea quietly and read, or whatever. Maybe you're not a morning person and you decide I'm actually going to take an hour in the afternoon to go on a walk or do whatever. Or you may have something new you're wanting to try, like cook or something. If you don't cook that often right now, it doesn't mean you need to cook 7 nights a week.
Right.
Like, start with 2.
I think,
start simple.
I think the biggest thing, again, going back to us changing this room up a little bit, it really has allowed us to see things in a different perspective, which then we can go, oh, does this work or does it not work? I think that's the biggest thing in these smaller changes. It really can control the perspective that we kind of see things in. That if we continue to do the same thing over and over again, obviously we're going to get the same results, right? And so for us, if it's just a simple life thing, if it's, again, waking up in the morning, if it's, moving the room around or whatever, giving those small things a go allows you to see a new perspective, see things in a different perspective, which then you can really go and say, yeah, this does work for us, or this doesn't work for me, or I know I want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but actually if I changed it to 7 and I got an extra hour, actually I really probably I might not need to be up at 5, or because that extra 30 minutes gives me the space that I actually was desiring, rather than feeling I have to get up 3 hours earlier or whatever it is. So I think that's the biggest thing that I think I've come away from changing this room up. It is changed my perspective and how we use this room, which in some ways has made it feel more like we're together all the time, I think, in some ways. Yeah. And we can be, interacting a little bit more in this space together, whether you're sitting over on the couch or you're sitting at the table. It feels a little bit more included together, where before we had the couch arranged in a way that it was facing away from the table, that then it almost felt like 2 separate spaces. And so
literally all that was taking the sofa and moving it.
Just moving it and just turning it.
Just a smidge. Like, it really isn't even moved that much.
And so I think, again, that little simple perspective change has allowed us to evaluate and go, actually, this actually might work better for our family. And again, it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a difficult thing or whatever. And we were fully prepared to move everything back.
Yeah.
Like there was no like, we're moving it, we're like sticking with it, and like all that kind of stuff. It was more of like, let's just give this a go. Let's just see what happens. If we see something different, if we experience something different, and it's something that we like, then great, we'll keep it. And so I think that's the thing that I hope that you can come away with in this new year, is these simple changes, these simple things, these small things that you might give a go and try to change. Like, don't put all the weight on them. Yeah. That okay, if I make this simple change, I've got to stick with it. It's not necessarily even that. It's just, if I make this little change for a week, what kind of new perspective can I look for and see how it really affects me? Again, if you're waking up in the morning, or if you change the room around, or if you tweak something small in your business or whatever it is, like pay attention to the new perspectives that come out of it, the things that kind of change for the good or the bad, and really make sure that you're evaluating those to really go, okay, yeah, this is something that I want to stick, and or no, actually let's put it back, or the other thing that could potentially come out of that, right, is I don't like this, I don't really want to go back to it, so maybe this is something I need to get rid of, or whatever. So there's a lot of things that could potentially come out of it. So again, they don't have to be big things, they can be small things.
And I think this is really hard for me because I've talked about this before. Like, I am in Enneagram 3, which means like I want to do all the things, get them accomplished at a really high level, and go on to the next thing. And so for me, doing simple things is sometimes challenging for me because it doesn't seem big enough. And so, like Pat was saying, like doing something like simple changing a room and stuff actually makes me see how simple that was, and then it did make a big impact. And being okay with that. And I think, and sometimes for us that are wired like me a little bit too, it's like you almost want to be able to say to people, which is so dumb, we did this big thing, like that kind of thing. All we did was move furniture around. And so I think that's something to think about too, if you tend to have more of my type of personality of like, how you almost have to rework it in your mind and like tell yourself, actually, no, this is a change, or this is something, and whether it's goals or intentions or whatever you may send the new year, and we've done a podcast about that before, of like breaking those down into manageable things instead of just always seeing that big thing that you're going after. And that's exactly what this is too. It's like breaking them down into the simple steps, because then you might do 3 simple steps of it and be like, actually, I'm not feeling this, or this isn't making the impact I thought it would, or that kind of thing. And that's okay. And I think of it often, or thinking it recently, of like our daughter's learning to play piano, and like they're teaching her the basic notes and how to have your hands and stuff like that. And so when she's practicing, her brother might come in and he does this whole thing on there, and she then tries to redo it. And he did tell her the other day, he's like, you have to learn this. Now, this is coming from a person that he taught himself how to play piano, so I'm not sure if he should be teaching her. But she is actually learning at school from someone who knows what they're doing. As she's got to start with the simple part before she can go to the bigger things. And it's so, because what we see from everyone else, right, on Instagram and stuff, sometimes the simple and the small steps are kind of boring. Sometimes they're not. I don't feel like this is boring, that we move this around and things like that. Like, it looks really great and that kind of stuff. But in a lot of other things in life, like bragging that you're getting up 15 minutes to 30 minutes earlier maybe doesn't sound that great, versus like, I get up 3 hours early now. First of all, does it matter if you share that with somebody or not? Share with close friends that they can hold you accountable, or a partner or something like that. But some of that stuff, I think, because of social media and the idea of putting things out there, we feel like it has to be big. And when you see people that are putting those things out there, and we do it sometimes too, of like, you have a new book out or something like that, like so many small steps happen to get to that big thing. And so it seems like, wow, that came out of nowhere. It's been a year or two in the works of like very small steps, because it goes each of those things. You don't go from 0 to 100. And that is so hard for me as my personality to hear that I cannot go from 0 to 100 in 3 days, because I would really like to do that, because then I can go on to the next thing. And so if that is your personality, it just almost takes coming back again and reworking that and realizing that's not healthy. That's not something, it's not sustainable and things like that. So, yeah.
I think too, it's just a lot of the times you want to go straight to the big thing, right?
It looks more fun that way.
And sometimes when you do that, you're going to fail. You could fail a lot quicker, or things might not work out the way that you were hoping or whatever. But if you would have taken maybe a little bit of time to do a small thing, and really understand it and push into it and change it and see, if that little small thing that I know is going to get me to the end result didn't go the way I thought, maybe the end result isn't quite exactly what I'm thinking either. And so I'm going to be really cheesy and say, the kids got a video game for Christmas. And I've heard this on a podcast before from another artist too that talks about. It's called Breath of the Wild. It's a new Zelda game. Or I guess it's not really new, but it's older. But our kids, it's new to them, and you have to do a bunch of side quests before you can go and defeat the big boss man at the very end. And that's kind of, I feel like in some ways that's a little bit like this as well. It's like you have to do the small things that might sometimes be a little bit boring, or tweak things that they just don't sound fun on that day, or that you might not even think about. But if you do those little things here and there, you're going to gain the confidence, and you're going to gain the understanding and the knowledge in order to eventually get to that last thing, that big thing. And so, and it's all about, again, that perspective thing. If you go straight to the end, you might not have all these different viewpoints and experiences that allow you to, be successful in that end bit.
Or learn from the failure.
Or learn from the failure, yeah. And so I think, again, it's just paying attention to the smaller things, and not just kind of glazing over them. Really kind of evaluate them and look into them, and I don't know. I felt like that kind of got a little bit deeper than I thought, but but yeah, right. I mean, I think again, like just reflecting on how we changed the room, has just been a really cool, like, small thing that we didn't expect to be kind of maybe more of a impact in our household. So.
I mean, even Jude, our son, said last night, and we've been able to, we were planning on hanging up some new artwork anyways, and those things we could have hung up whether we changed the room or not, but it just happened to coincide with the fact that we moved the room around, plus we got some Christmas money to spend on some artwork we've been wanting to add, and happened to stumble upon an exhibit we went to and things like that, which meant last night Jude was looking and stuff, and I said, "Oh, how are you feeling?" Because we keep checking in with our kids to see if they like the room as well, because I mean it is their space too. And Jude said it just feels more like home now, and it was just interesting. Both Pat and I are like, "How interesting!" Yeah. Again, such a simple. All we did, you guys, is shift some things. Yeah. And like I said, less than 15 minutes. And so if you're in the point at the beginning of this year that you're like overthinking things, because we all do at the beginning of the year, or you're making these massive lists and that kind of stuff, just one simple change. Do one simple change at a time too. Don't try and do 15 at a time. Do one simple change and you may be surprised what a big impact it has. I don't know. Maybe it's moving around a room. Maybe it's getting up that 15 minutes or 30 minutes early. I mean, you can literally put this into anything that you're thinking about for this year. And do that simple change and stick with that simple change before you move on to another one. It's like the idea of like habit stacking of, even though moving a room is not a habit, but getting up in the morning would be, of like, stick with that thing for a while before you add another simple change, because then you can see the impact of that one versus the next one you might move on to. Telling myself that as I'm thinking of all these things I want to start doing. So yeah, we hope that you, that maybe this gives yourself some grace at the beginning of the year if you're trying to do everything all at once. That sounds like that movie. Yeah. Isn't that what it's called? Everything.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. It's that, you probably know what I'm talking about. I can't think of what the title is called now.
Everything, Everywhere,
All at Once.
All at Once or something.
Maybe?
I don't know.
Anyways, okay. So we'd love to hear from you guys of what are some simple things that you're hoping to start the year with, of like simple change that you're hoping will make a big impact, or you're just going to see. We'd love to hear from you guys on this, because it is, it's great to hear from you. And as we're entering this new year, it's also super helpful for us to hear from you guys and understanding the kind of things that you would like to hear from us. Questions you have, things you want to know, that kind of stuff. You can do all of that on Instagram at Laurent Collective. Just send us a DM and we'll see it and that kind of stuff. You
can leave a comment if you're watching this on YouTube.
Yep, exactly. You can leave comments on YouTube. And
or even through reviews and things on Apple Podcasts and things like that. So
yeah. And we will continue to tell you that it is super helpful for us. For instance, on YouTube, if you subscribe to our channel, that's super helpful, as well as on Apple and Spotify and stuff. If you rate and review the podcast, it helps others find us. And hopefully this information will be helpful for them as they start the new year too. So yeah, awesome. Hopefully make one simple change that'll lead to a big impact. And we will talk to you guys next week.
See ya.
Bye.